Good to see all of you here, and lovely to be with so many people. We're very happy to welcome Nimbus Aerospace here in Paris. Thank you very much for hosting that event with us. And we are also going to speak about aerospace. We're going to speak about AI and manufacturing. The whole event is going to go like this. We're first going to have a keynote speaker talking about his own questions on the field for about 10 minutes. When this is over, we're going to a larger panel discussion that we're hoping you find interesting. And at the end of that, we will have time for a couple of questions. If you have anything in mind that you want to ask the panelists, this is your time to actually go for it. After this, we'll actually be going into networking. And as you can see, there's plenty of things to eat and drink. So see with us. And in any case, I would love to welcome Shashank, who will be speaking for his keynote for about 10 minutes. Please give a round of applause to Shashank.
Today, we will announce our sustainability strategy. The sustainability strategy that will make us the greenest airline, not just in France, not just in Europe, but in the world. And to make this sustainability strategy come to life, I need each and every one of you to work not as a team, not as a department, but as a family. Are you with me? Now, just as the music dies down, there are two people at the back who look at each other and go, "What was all that about?" And they say, "Well, I have no clue what that was about, but there's good food outside. Let's go and eat." Now, not a month or a quarter goes by where I don't come across yet another airline announcing yet another sustainability strategy, while then going to Le Bourget and ordering another 100 aircraft built using today's technology, flying today's jet fuel for the next 50 years and beyond. Sustainability is often talked about. In certain countries these days, it's also a bad word, like DEI. So you talk about economic resilience as opposed to sustainability. But there is a difference between the noise and the signal. And today we are here to talk about signal. I have a new book out, which I'll be talking about later, which focuses specifically on the signals. Who are the companies, the startups, the people who are actually executing on the strategy that makes sustainability a reality? Nimbus and Techstars have been very kind to buy books for all of you, so you walk away with books by the end of the day today. But let me share a few stats from the book and a few charts that are at the back of the book. Today, there are about 29,000 aircraft in the air. By 2042, there'll be 42,000, almost 50% higher. But almost all of these aircraft will be built using today's technology. You know, if anyone took an Uber or a Lyft to get here? No, everyone took the train. Okay, that's what you do in Paris. In London, we take the tube everywhere, but sometimes Uber. But if you book an Uber Green, guess what? A Tesla will pull up, or an electric car will pull up, right? Can you book an airline green option today? There is no electric aircraft. There is no hydrogen aircraft. It doesn't exist. It will not exist for many years. That's because, That's because aircraft that are being built today will continue flying for many decades from now. And that's how Airbus and Boeing have traditionally made aircraft. They're meant to fly for many years, handed over from an airline like Singapore Airlines to, let's say, an airline like Royal Brunei, and then to someone like Delta, which will continue flying it for, 55 years? About that. I think Delta still flies a 717 to Knoxville, if I'm not wrong. So airplanes are meant to fly for a long time. But guess what? The plane that's being built today will continue flying well beyond 2050s. And today's planes have 2 jet engines or 4 below the wing that will continue flying using jet aviation fuel, Jet 8 or kerosene. Now these produce all sorts of carbon dioxide and CO2 derivatives, as well as Contrails, let's not forget, there are other non-CO2 impacts of today's aircraft as well, which will continue well into the future. And what this does is that while you might hear an airline CEO today talk about, hey, my airline's or aviation's carbon footprint is about 2 to 3%, guess what? If we don't do anything, international aviation's emissions will rise dramatically faster than other industries. Why? Again, because for road transport, we can Uber Green and electric car pulls up, right? Maritime is making huge progress. Agriculture is making huge progress, whereas aviation is it growing or shrinking? It's growing, right? So aviation's emissions are growing because you're using today's technology to power the future. And at that point, it will be a very difficult conversation to have. What's also interesting is if we split flying time or flying distance between less than 500 kilometers, 500 to 4,000 to over 4,000, the percentage of flights versus percentage of global fuel consumption changes. So you see, a significant over a quarter of fuel consumption is for flights less than 500 kilometers. And we're going to talk about this afterwards, why this entire conversation is important. Whereas over 4,000 kilometers, you see it's not distributed normally. So there is a chance to innovate here. While a lot of flights will take sustainable aviation fuel, there is a chance to innovate here in future aircraft space, where you can have electric, hydrogen-powered fuel cells. Think the entire spectrum there. And that's where the opportunity lies to innovate. So in the book, we have tried to summarize and have deep dive chapters into companies that are making a difference, both from sustainable aviation fuel, to electric aircraft, to hybrid aircraft, to airlines and airports. There's even one airport which is trying to be completely energy independent, which I think, well, it came as a surprise to me, so I'm sure it won't be a surprise for Pittsburgh International Airport, of all places. So, very interesting case studies, which I'll be happy to talk about afterwards, but for now, let me introduce and welcome Adrian from Nimbus Aerospace.
Yeah, so I'm Adrian, the CEO of Nimbus Aerospace. We are not 18 years old. We're only about a year and a half old in 2 years.
18 months.
Yeah, so that's that going for us. But essentially at Nimbus, what we're doing is we're building a 6-day passenger hybrid electric business jet. That's our first aircraft. And yeah, we're just happy to be here. Like Emilie said, we are Techstars portfolio company, so great to be back in Techstars network in a different country than what we went through Techstars. And thank you all for coming out.
Awesome. So, first question for both of you. You being entrepreneurs in very different ways and very different fashion, I would love to understand what is exactly the thing that triggered your entrepreneurial journey and why you decided to found your company. Maybe, Shashank, if you want to go ahead, you looked at me with very big eyes. Seems like you had things to say.
You probably saw it. I love planes. I have a technology background, but I really do like planes a lot. I was working in Boston with an MIT startup in technology, but I realized that there's nothing at the intersection of aviation and marketing, which were my two interests. So back in 2008, I decided to start a blog, but blog was a novelty, called SimpliFlying.com. And I just started writing thrice a week on airline brands, of which there wasn't enough content to satiate my thirst at that point. And in a couple of years of just doing this consistently, SimpliFlying became one of the top 3 blogs in aviation. We were on Twitter when Twitter was still good, at decent. Remember those days?
Was it called X?
Yes. We were one of the top few most followed accounts on Twitter. And then I said, you know what? How can I help airlines build trust? That was the premise. And back in 2008, to build trust, airlines had to provide customer service on Twitter, sell tickets using Facebook, do destination marketing on YouTube. So I left my job to start SimpliFlying as a company, not as a blog anymore, to consult for airlines, specifically on how do you use all of these new digital tools and use it as part of a strategy. And in the first 10 years, we had worked with just about 100 airlines. Really small ones like Pluna in Uruguay to Estonian Air to really big ones like Airbus here to Lufthansa. And it had been a really fun ride. And post-COVID, we launched our new practice, which is on sustainability, because we believe that to build trust for the next 15 years, airlines have to get sustainability right, both in terms of their efforts and their communications.
Maybe a quick clarifying question for me, but you in here that you've also consulted with airlines and plane manufacturers.
Absolutely, yes. Airlines, airports, and OEMs. So Boeing, Airbus, Bombardier.
Okay, lovely. Adrian, would you like to go ahead as well?
Yeah, so I've loved planes my entire life too. I think we could debate who likes them more. I might win, who knows? But anyways, I don't know how familiar you guys are with the United States, but I live on the West Coast. My parents live on the East Coast in a very small town. So in order to get home, I have to fly across the country, transfer through a bigger airport, and then take a small plane about 500 miles or drive 8 hours. The problem is that plane that we're taking on that trip is very old, it's inefficient, and airlines are retiring these aircraft, and there's no real direct replacement coming online. So I just, on a Sunday afternoon, thought, let's start an airplane company. And now we're in a little bit too deep, but I love airplanes, and it's been a fun ride, and yeah, that's really the founding story of Nimbus. We decided to pivot from regional aircraft to private jets because it's much simpler to sell one aircraft rather than selling, 100 regional aircraft, like Delta or 90 or something like that. So.
Awesome. Both of you have dabbled a lot into technology and the aviation space. My question for you is, in the last few years, how has technology, and specifically AI, really disrupted the way the industry works, and also basically how decision-making is being done in this industry? Whoever wants to take that potato.
Yeah, so I think when you look at aircraft certification, that accounts for about 40% of an aircraft's development costs. One of the ways so if you want to build aircraft faster, you really need to modernize aircraft or certified. So we're using AI to essentially do that. And so we developed this AI tool that we call ACT, Aircraft Compliance Tool. And that tool is able to reduce certification costs by about 30% and time by about 24 months. So that's how we're using AI. I think when you hear AI in aviation, a lot of people assume that they're using AI to continue to design an aircraft. We're not doing that. And another important part about that is that this tool is not certified by the FAA, so the FAA still has ultimate ownership of the airplane certification process. So in short, basically, AI is great in our industry. It allows us to save time and costs, which gets aircraft out in the market quicker and faster. So.
I think AI in aviation is really just scratching the surface. Right now, some airlines are using AI for customer service or FAQ, like chatbots. But I don't think that's where the meat is. You might often hear airline executives talk about, 30% of my cost is fuel, so let's reduce that cost with electric aircraft. But that's very, very hard to do. What they don't talk about is about 40% of the cost within aviation is labor costs. And I think that's where AI has the biggest potential to disrupt or help the industry, where you can do predictive maintenance before the engine needs repair. The mechanic knows and is already supervising other mechanics, for example, and you need a fewer number of mechanics. And I don't even want to talk about what can be done in immediate terms. There is another Seattle startup, interestingly, called Beacon, which is trying to do Tesla autopilot for the actual aircraft in the air, where the ultimate goal is to have one pilot supported by multiple AI pilots who are also talking to other AI pilots in the aircraft ahead of them or behind them, which is very scary right now, but it can be done in military aviation or defense to begin with, and then towards commercial aviation. And for that, I actually have a joke which I heard from this legend in aviation called Steve Hazy 2 weeks ago. So it's perfect for this audience. He said, Shashank, Boeing is inventing a new aircraft. It has one pilot and a dog in it.
It's like,
really, what's the dog there for? He says, well, the pilot's job is to feed the dog. And the dog's job is to bite the pilot if he tries to touch anything. And that's the future of AI.
All right, so on the Adrian side, rather on the manufacturing end side, so really reducing those costs. On yours, a little bit more of a subversive idea of reducing labor costs here in this case, right? Interesting. On the manufacturing side, actually, on your side, Adrian, it's a very regulated environment to build a plane. How do you deal with that?
So I think people hear the term regulation and they think that's a bad thing. But I want to be clear, like FAA certification, that's a good thing, right? It should be hard to bring an aircraft to market because ultimately these things are flying in, crazy environments and they're carrying people. So you want aircraft to be gone through a rigorous certification process prior to carrying anyone. But it can be made easier, right? And it should be made easier. It did used to take, a decade to bring an aircraft to market. A lot of people like to talk about the 747 was built in like 3 or 4 years, right? And that plane is incredibly safe and still flying to this day. So there's no reason why it has to take so long, but you do need to modernize how certification is done. And so one of the main things that we're doing at Nimbus is trying to do that. So we're trying to build our aircraft faster and cheaper by using AI. So our certification process, like I mentioned a little bit earlier ago, all it does is it essentially automates compliance workflows and certification basis. And then it has an AI copilot that engineers working on the certification can ask. This copilot is trained by companies that have gone through FAA certification. So we're onboarding beta users right now, and we're using their data to train our models. Additionally, it's also being advised by the FAA. We have the former FAA Deputy Director of Aircraft Certification helping us together with this tool. So this tool will be able to continue buttoned up with the intent of cutting down time to bring aircraft to market and cutting down money to bring aircraft to market. And ultimately, we hope that in the future, it'll be much cheaper and faster to bring an aircraft to market. And that's what we're trying to do at Nimbus.
And I'll share a personal example. I was just sharing with Patrick and Adrian that a few years ago, I'd taken so many flights that I'd flown more than George Clooney up in the air.
How about
in that movie. And that year, I'd taken 75 flights. And my co-author, Doug Singer, a couple of years ago, sat me down and said, Shashank, calculate your footprint. It's like, come on, I live in British Columbia, I drive an electric car, I had recently turned vegan, what could my footprint be? And I almost fell off the chair when my footprint was twice the highest per capita country in the world. I was like, okay, this is actually quite bad. I had no awareness that it was a lot. So I said, okay, let's be just intentional about flying. So I managed to reduce my flights from 75 flights to 45 flights the following year. And then came COVID, which was 0. But post-COVID...
A lot of good for the environment.
Yes, but post-COVID, I managed to get down to 15 flights per year.
Okay.
And now all of us in the team, SimpliFlying team, we track our flights per year. And I think going now from 75 to 15 was sort of leading, what can we do ourselves?
Do you win something if you're the one that has the smallest...
Yes. So we retired the footprint of that person in the team by actually buying carbon removals in a well in South Dakota. It's a carbon sink, so you can buy it.
Good for South Dakota, I guess. Yeah. How about you and Nimbus Aerospace here?
I will just say walk there. As an AV geek, only taking 15 flights per year is a little bit painful, but you got it. So anyways, one of the things that people don't understand, well, I guess they understand is that, flying's horrible, right? But private jets, there's not, 10,000 something in the world, right? There's so many more commodity on flights. But private jets have an outsized impact in terms of the environmental one. They're about 5 to 14 times more polluting per passenger than a commercial aircraft and on the sides of the cabin. And so if you want to also help with, the industry achieving net zero, you do need to do something about private aviation as well. Secondly, private jets are a tool. Like, people use them to save time, and that helps them get more business done, helps increase economic output. So by making an aircraft that is cheaper to own and operate and making it sustainable, you're able to open up debates for more people's flight crafts. That number won't increase drastically, but by doing that, you're helping the planet, but also helping increase economic growth. So that's really what we're trying to do with the mission.
Now, if I can add to what Adrian is saying, for the book, we seriously considered introducing a chapter on private aviation, but it was very hard to find a player who was doing something. But we had done the sort of 30th chapter, you have to do a lot of precursive research and pitch it to the publishers. By the way, publishing is harder than aviation. And when we did that, we actually researched business aviation, and what we learned was 2 interesting statistics. One is if you take all of the business aircraft in the world, they emit more than all flights taking off and landing at Heathrow. So it's significant. The other statistic we learned was that if you take a business aircraft and you offer customers to take care of the carbon footprint voluntarily, 30% of them will actually offset their flight compared to 3% for commercial aircraft. So the propensity to pay for business aviation passengers is much higher than all of us, let's say, visiting family and friends. So I think it's a good market to target.
Interesting. Definitely good markets. We've talked a little bit in the beginning, especially on everything technology related, AI, we touched upon that. We are looking at a moment of change right now. It's another iPhone moment that we are learning. If we could call that the ChatGPT moment, it would probably be even more appropriate at the moment. What do you see as the largest things that will change and completely disrupt the industry in the next 5 to 10 years? And what would you advise to people who are looking to step into the space, looking at how disrupted it will be in the next 5 to 10 years?
I think if you're a younger person, get into hardware rather than software. Everyone is running after software. Seems like an easy win. But hardware is the harder thing to do, and I think the win is much bigger. Like this guy trying to build a plane.
It's a hype Intel or so. We're saying not recommended. But no, anyways, I think
Gonna get in trouble.
might have said a few other things that got me in trouble. Who knows? We'll see. But no, I think hardware is really cool. And I think we do need more people in hardware because building a software company, I come from a software background. It is fun, right? But there's no experience in software that I guess compares to seeing something physical take off, or maybe go to a robot using it around your skull. So I would give the advice of do hardware if you want to do hardware, but there's a lot of things you can also do in software. There's so much innovation that can happen in the software space as well. Ultimately, what it comes down to is pick something that you're passionate about. I think so many people say, in order to start a company, you just need a great team, and then, the idea doesn't matter so much. I think the idea matters almost just as much as the team, because this is about a 10-year commitment or so, maybe longer. And if you're not passionate about what you're working on, then you could be making a ton of money, but what's to keep you at that company to grow it, right? There's always something else. Like for myself, for example, I don't want to be at Nimbus in 15 years. I want to be something else. But if I wasn't super passionate about what we're doing right now, I probably would have, after the 1/4 players, I probably would say, okay, I'm done with this thing. I'm going to start a DC firm, right? But I'm not going to do that because there's so many more things we can do at Nimbus, and that's what's kind of keeping me anchored here at Nimbus. So I guess, long story short, but do something you're passionate about. Go and talk to users, see if that problem actually exists, and if it does exist and other people have that problem, then go up and go for it, and just see what happens. The worst thing that can happen is that you got the market timing wrong. You got the market wrong. But even if you do fail, failure is not necessarily a bad thing. You've learned something from that, and you can take that to your next job or your next startup, and you'll be better off because you did that.
Part of the question really was about what you see as the next 5 to 10 years disruptions in the airspace industry. If you had to pick maybe your top thing that you think is going to disrupt the space.
And like right now, people are looking in hydrogen, but you really can't fly with hydrogen as a fuel source. You can turn hydrogen into an electric fuel cell and then use that electricity, but it's very hard. I hope that can become a reality. But taking a page from what Adrian was saying, there's a traditional Chinese concept which has 3 aspects, where it's about timing, place, and people. And the most important is timing, then people, and then the place. So lots of times you can be in the right place with the right people. If you get the timing wrong, nothing really works. Sometimes you can be having the best team on the planet, and you have the best timing as well, but you're in Timbuktu, in Mali. Wouldn't actually work. So with AI, I think the timing is actually right. There's serious tailwinds in aviation for disruptive technologies, for change, both in terms of sustainability and in terms of AI. So the timing is really good right now. If you can gather the right group of people and be in the right place to develop it, then I think some really magical things can happen in the next decade or so.
I mean, the next 10, like 5 to 10 years, I think like there are problems with infrastructure readiness, right? And certification, that's going to be a big challenge as well. So if someone can figure out a way to deal with the infrastructure challenges, and then also certification, right? And then bring something to market. I guess that's probably the best answer I have at this point. You can come back to it, the networking event, I might have a different answer.
Very lots of wine or two, right? Okay, so now we've learned a lot of things throughout all of that discussion. We've also learned that the day Adrian doesn't want to build another company, he'll found the VC firm. Now you guys want to open the discussion with you. Do you have any questions that you would like to? Oh gosh, yes, go ahead.
Yes, I do. Actually related to timing, I think it's for both of you. I was thinking, when you were speaking about like how long it lasts, I've been actually did a quick search to see that like how long
Each aircraft continues to fly.
no, how long it takes to replace, so how long airplane takes, the lifespan of an airplane.
Yeah.
60.
Yeah, it was like 20 plus years and 25. So next time.
Yeah.
There you go.
So regarding timing, we spoke about like being in the iPhone era of the AI, and knowing that the impact of the change that we're gonna do today will affect the next 25 years. How do you know that it's actually the right time, knowing that AI moves so fast? Example, AI might look completely different next year, and if you make the wrong move today, we're gonna have to deal with that for 25 years. How do you know?
I think that's where regulators come in, right? They won't let any new change just slide into aviation just like that. It has to be rigorously tested. No, you don't think so, Patrick?
I was at the conference yesterday just about that topic in Paris, and AI in airplane. And I just learned something interesting. You know, the computers in an airplane, it's just monocore airplanes. So it's just simple single core from processors, right? CPUs. Because that's the problem you're talking about. And your question was about 5 to 10 years horizon. Problem aviation takes in 20, 30 years. Yeah, horizon. That's the difficulty where you try to decarbonize. Everybody wants to decarbonize aviation. First, it's one of the industry the most difficult to decarbonize because flying an airplane is not as easy as driving an Uber. Where there's Earth supporting tons of batteries, you can't get that in the year. Second, the regulations, and you're right with your approach. I think there's a lot to do there. But it takes so much time for new technologies to be certified. So when you fly, it's safe for you, and you don't worry if the dog is biting the pilot, the pilot is touching the instruments. So no. Long story short, I think AI in the plane is going to take a while. Every time OpenAI releases an update, right, like startups just die. You know that can't happen in aviation because like at this point, you still update planes with floppy disks. Some of them, right? That's crazy. So you got to get it right when you launch an AI product with aviation.
Something to add here also. I work in the aviation management, aviation maintenance industry. We are in some aviation maintenance companies. We are just moving to software from paper format. So AI is way ahead. Yeah. I work with some companies. They are just moving from paper-based to software. So I think it's gonna take some time.
Yeah, my co-founder is younger than me. He's 25. Mm-hmm. Went from college to Bombardier. He was working with engineers that were designing planes with paper and pen. Mm. That's,
Yeah.
He still uses Microsoft Excel to manage our roadmap.
Yeah.
We're trying to get him to use Jira. And he's trying to build the next generation. I don't know if that's inspired or not, but
That must be done on that front. Any other question?
I have one.
Jeff.
So are we talking about sustainability and probably, this idea that probably we should fly less. And then at the same time, we have airlines pushing a lot of these frequent flyer programs, etc. In a way, tempting you to fly more because otherwise you fall in your tiers, etc. I'm just wondering how does the aviation industry seek to marry the two approaches? I mean, on one side, talking about, I mean, to an outsider from the industry, completely outsider, it seems like a bit of a hypocritical approach, right? Like on one side, really pushing you to do that extra flight, take it, go the long haul one, take a business class, and then at the same time talking a lot about sustainability, and then telling you that okay, if you pay an extra amount, then this will be added to your green, we reduce your footprint. So it's like to I don't know what's your take on that.
It's a good question, Puneet. So for context, airline loyalty programs were invented by American Airlines in the 1970s. They are extremely lucrative, where many airlines in the world, especially the American US-based airlines, they make more money through the loyalty points being sold to credit cards than the airline operation itself. The airline itself is loss-making, the credit card makes the money, so the entity is profitable. So they're not going anywhere. That's the first reality. Having said that, there are some very interesting glimmers of hope. For example, Alaska Airlines, this is chapter number 1, actually talk about their loyalty program specifically, where now you don't have to do a mileage run at the end of the year to hit the status. Instead, you can go online and buy SAF on their program, not for yourself, but for any passengers. And if you buy SAF for, let's say, $500 or $1,000, a little cheaper than actually buying the air ticket, they will bump you up to the next tier without flying. And they launched it as a soft launch for Microsoft employees only, 2 years ago. And it was such a huge success that they relaunched it the next December, and they realized that the number of mileage runners dipped by 36%, and people were just buying SAF. Well, that's a one-off impact. There are 2 airlines that have started green loyalty programs. One is Etihad Airways in Abu Dhabi, and the other is Qantas. Etihad is interesting, where they have a green loyalty program where you can do certain things while you're flying, like you don't check in a bag, you buy SAF, and you get double tier points. So same flight, you actually get much closer to status, and you can get your status. Qantas is even more interesting. They actually have a green tier. So bronze, silver, platinum, green. They have a green tier, where in Australia, just for the record, more Aussies have a Qantas loyalty program membership than Americans have Prime. It's the only thing in town. Okay? So it's like 76% or something of Australians are Qantas frequent flyer members. So they're like monopoly. So they said, okay, you know what? Then if you switch to green electricity at home, if you get an electric car, if you are taking the bus or the metro to work, you add in all those, and if you're doing 10,000 steps per day, free of fitness app, just add everything to Qantas loyalty, and we'll give you points on everything. You take Uber Green, you get points. So they have a green tier in which you can get your status by being the greenest of the green tier, and without actually flying, you can get the top tier status, which I think is very disruptive. I don't see a lot of airlines doing it, but there are certain airlines trying new things.
I'm a complete outsider, so I don't understand what regulations do. If specifically in the arena of aviation, what is it written? It's worried about how aviation could change when the timelines are squeezed. So that makes me think that the regulations are placed in such a manner because safety is a big concern when you're flying. So of course, if something has to be tested over a period of time, it will take that X amount of time, so you cannot speed that up, right? Because safety is a concern. And then, coming to the point of safety, there is, I'm not very sure that how the AI regulations are implemented, if there are any in your industry. So just coming to the focal point of safety, the regulations and the AI, how is the safety being managed in aviation? And you bring in AI, and you also bring the challenge of regulations.
Yeah, so importantly, our tool is not certified by the FAA. if it were certified by the FAA, then it would just be AI basically doing the entire certification process. All we do is we essentially, our tool automates compliance matrix certification basis, so it tells you like how you're going to certify this thing, and then it documents that. But once you get that document, you still need someone at the FAA to actually sign off on it and to read it. So that's where the safety part comes in. We still use the FAA as like the source of truth. Now, ultimately, we are the manufacturer. So if the plane does crash, we would get that ownership, right? But because that's a responsible thing to do. But it is fully certified by the FAA. So in terms of safety, it will be no less safe than any other aircraft. We're just changing how these documents get to the FAA and making that process faster. But the FAA still has to sign off on the document.
Yeah. But I understand. Sorry, I don't remember anything, but the gentleman here, Patrick, he mentioned that the processor inside the cockpit is really the basic one, right? If I'm
It's like your smartphone.
yeah, it's
Your smartphone is
less than a smartphone. So
Still safe.
yeah, because I would categorize myself as a technology averse person. I'm not very pro AI also, because I would like to believe that there is a certain limit beyond which we, if we cross the line, I'm not so sure. So maybe having that simple computer inside the cockpit is a better idea than having someone extremely smart and someone who is able to communicate with other smart computers. And then I would not feel very safe, to be sure. So,
Now, what if the pilot still has the ultimate control?
well,
You have AI to
Well,
advise the pilot
that's
what
the
can
funny
fly.
part about AI, that where do you draw the line and where do you know with AI that it is not going to supersede you?
I mean, you can't be the dog that bites.
Yeah. So that's why a bigger concern in terms of safety.
Oh, so so our aircraft is not, we're not using like an autonomous, we're not building autonomous aircraft. So we still have two pilots in the cockpit. We're using off-the-shelf avionics, mostly from Garmin. So these avionics are found in companies like Cessna, right? So we're not changing anything on that front. The moment you try to make an aircraft autonomous or remove a pilot, if it was supposed to have two pilots and you're trying to remove a pilot, that adds cost and time from the program development standpoint, and that's something that we're trying to avoid. So if you were to fly one of our aircraft, you wouldn't have to worry about that. It would be like, essentially flying out of Cessna or something like that. Now, in the broader context of the industry, the push to remove a pilot from the cockpit or not. Yeah, I'm worried about that as well, too. I think that's a natural thing to be worried about. But one thing I do want to just point out is that when something is certified, you can trust that it'll be a safe aircraft to fly in, because it is very hard to get something certified. And these autonomous systems, right, like they've been in development for years. They're probably going to be, at least years, maybe not decade plus to get certified. The technology is available to make this happen. Where you look at some of, I don't want to pivot it to like the military space, but like my co-founder came from Raytheon. And so he was working on systems that could, pinpoint a target for, thousands of miles away, right? Like in a small room. So like it is available to do this. The problem is, how do you make that and certify it, right? And so when someone can figure out how to make that and certify it and make it a repeatable process, and at that point, no one should feel worried about flying an aircraft that's fully autonomous. But until you get to that point, anyone that tries to go down that path is going to have to spend, billions of dollars and tons of money to make it happen. So we're just avoiding it altogether.
All right, we're going to end right now because we're at the end of time, but we're all here at the end during the networking session, so you can actually come up to the speakers and ask them all your questions. Thank you very much, Shashank and Adrian, for your insights. I want a huge round of applause for that. So feel free to connect with the three of us. You have here little QR codes that lead to our LinkedIn profile, so don't hesitate to connect. We're probably a bit far away here, so you'll have to approach the screen for this. Shashank is going to sign the books that are here for us, so go ahead and grab your book and join Shashank for the signature of it. And after this, connect, have a good time, get a glass of anything you like, and chat us up. Thank you very much. A huge round of applause also for you.
Thank you.
But then, hey,